Science fiction and horror make for an extremely thrilling and satisfying combination. The history of cinema has clearly shown us this combination in particular works well. Both genres complement each other so brilliantly. We can see that play out in some of the best movies of all time. Some notable examples are Videodrome, Poltergeist, Invasion of the Body Snatchers, and even the recent A24 Blockbuster Backrooms. They scare the bejesus out of us by portraying our inherent fear of technology, ghosts, other people, and even ourselves. And some of them go above and beyond, disturbing us for days. In this video, we're going to talk about 10 science fiction horror movies that were so disturbing that they were almost banned. So, without wasting any more time, let's jump in.
Mum, now you don't need to talk.
The Human Centipede 2 Full Sequence, 2011. The Human Centipede 2 Full Sequence is a body horror movie released in 2011. It was written and directed by Tom Six. The movie revolves around a mentally disturbed loner named Martin who lives with his mother in a housing project and works the night shift as a security guard in a grim underground parking complex. To escape the confines of his alienated, miserable, and depressing existence, he fantasizes about the fictional world of cult horror movie The Human Centipede First Sequence, and watches that movie obsessively. He gets inspired by the meticulous surgical skills of one of the characters from the movie, named Dr. Hyder, leaving him to attack and kidnap people, cutting off their legs and physically attaching them to create a sequence of a 12-person human centipede. He even kills his own mother after she destroys his scrapbook based on that movie, which he had maintained for himself. Initially, in June 2011, the British Board of Film Classification did not allow the movie for a direct-video release, considering it way too sexually violent and potentially obscene even for an 18 certificate. Later on in October of 2011, the film received an 18 certificate after 32 cuts, with cuts totaling 2 minutes and 37 seconds. A similar situation occurred in Australia and New Zealand, where the Australian Classification Board initially granted it an R18+ classification. However, that decision was later overruled and a 3-person board subsequently refused to classify the film. A modified version was then released on December 2011 with an R18+ classification. When the movie had its US premiere at Fantastic Fest in Austin, Texas, one audience member became extremely ill during the screening, requiring assistance from paramedics. Island of Lost Souls, 1932. Island of Lost Souls was adapted into a movie from a novel by H.G. Wells, titled The Island of Dr. Moreau. It was directed by Earl C. Kenton and released in 1932 during the pre-code Hollywood era. The movie begins with Edward Parker, portrayed by Richard Arlen, who finds himself trapped along with a bunch of wild animals on the private island of Dr. Moreau, who's portrayed by none other than Charles Laughton, known for directing The Night of the Hunter, and also for his roles in iconic movies like Billy Wilder's Witness for the Prosecution. Alright, let's get back to the movie. So, Dr. Moreau's private island is inhabited by strange half-man, half-beast creatures, which are basically the byproducts of Dr. Moreau's bioanthropological research. The doctor believes that since humans evolved from a lower species, animals can also evolve into humans through experimental skin grafting. Not surprisingly, the experiment itself is extremely painful for the animals. Island of Lost Souls is one of the pre-code horror films that helped in rushing the creation of Hollywood's self-censorship board. Although it eventually attained a cult status, many critics were repulsed by the movie at the time of its release. H.G. Wells himself wasn't satisfied with how the movie turned out. He was particularly unhappy with Dr. Moreau's character, as in the book he was portrayed as a well-intentioned visionary, but the movie portrayed him as a sadistic tyrant instead. Since its release in December of 1932, several versions of the movie have been released, with cuts that have removed dialogue and scenes involving Dr. Moreau. The movie was even banned in New Zealand, Germany, India, Italy, and the United Kingdom. When the Criterion Collection chose to restore it in 2011, its president admitted that the restoration was one of the most difficult projects they had ever undertaken. A Clockwork Orange, 1971. If you're a cinephile, you have to have seen this masterpiece by Stanley Kubrick. Known for its dystopian themes, disturbing imagery, dark humor, and striking cinematography, it's widely regarded as one of the best movies of the New Hollywood cinema era. In film history, the New Hollywood cinema era is known for its bold and courageous storytelling, with extremely liberal and uninhibited portrayal of sex, drugs, and violence. Several major directors associated with that era, Martin Scorsese, William Friedkin, Francis Ford Coppola, and Stanley Kubrick, did not shy away from any of that. Instead, they embraced it. 1971 was a controversial year for Hollywood. Films like Sam Peckinpah's Straw Dogs and Stanley Kubrick's A Clockwork Orange Both sparked controversy in their violent imagery. A Clockwork Orange is set in a dystopian futuristic world, in which a violent psychopath named Alex gets caught by the police on charges of rape and murder. He's the leader of a notorious gang of extremely violent criminals. Alex chooses to participate in a governmental rehabilitation program to get his prison sentence reduced, and from there the rest of the story follows. Throughout the 1980s and 1990s, VHS tapes of the film were unavailable in the UK. This led to the misconception that the movie had been banned there. However, following reports of alleged copycat violence linked to the film, Stanley Kubrick himself decided to withdraw it from circulation in the UK after its theatrical run ended in early 1973. Kubrick believed that holding the movie accountable for the crimes that were being committed was the wrong position to take, because a criminal would have committed the crimes anyway, and his movie was just used as a scapegoat. At the time of its release, the movie was banned in South Africa, Singapore, and Brazil. Videodrome, 1983. This movie represents the best of Canadian cinema, a body horror masterpiece by the master of the body horror genre himself. It can make your skin crawl and disturb you for days after you've watched. Its imagery stays with you. It revolves around a guy named Max Wren, portrayed by James Woods, who's the president of Channel 83, a television channel that airs extremely violent and explicit content, ranging from softcore pornography to hardcore violence. After he watches Videodrome, a show revolving around torture and murder, he starts hallucinating. Later on, it's revealed that Videodrome induces malignant brain tumors in viewers who watch it, which cause them to hallucinate. Throughout the rest of the movie, we see Max Wren hallucinate in ways enough to give the audience nightmares for years. It received an 18 certificate for strong sex, bloody violence, and gore, and it faced censorship in the UK, where some later video releases were cut, although cuts were eventually restored. The movie flopped when it was first released in 1983, but over time it attained a cult following, and now it's considered one of the best horror movies of all time by several publications. Film students all over the world watch this movie in order to learn more about the art and craft of filmmaking. Contamination, 1980. This science fiction horror flick from 1980, written and directed by Luigi Cozzi, revolves around a former astronaut named Hubbard, who helps a government agent and a police detective in tracking down the source of green alien eggs, which were found by the police on a ship. Later on in the movie, it's revealed that those eggs were manufactured by a one-eyed Martian in South America, who grew from a tiny seed Hubbard had brought back from Mars after a space exploration mission. The film ran into several controversies at the time of its release. In the UK, it was never certified until 2004. Although both the uncut and cut versions were available on video in the UK during the early 80s, the introduction of the Video Recordings Act meant that video releases were subject to mandatory classification. The fully uncut version was finally released in the UK in 2006 by Anchor Bay. In the United States, the movie was released on home video under two titles, Alien Contamination and Toxic Spawn, and both of them were heavily edited. Tetsuo 2, Body Hammer, 1992. This one happens to be an extremely underrated Japanese cyberpunk body horror masterpiece from Shinya Tsukamoto. It revolves around a man named Taniguchi Tomoe, whose hand is transformed into a cannon capable of firing bullets, as he ends up accidentally shooting his own son while he's getting abducted. And if that's not traumatic enough, later on in the movie, it's revealed that Tomoe killed his own father while he was abusing his mother when he was a child. It's experimental science fiction horror at its best. On top of that, it features excellently choreographed action sequences and visually striking cinematography. The surreal tone only adds to the eerie nature of the movie. It can also be interpreted as a cinematic meditation on the loss of a child, parenthood, childhood trauma, and guilt. Not surprisingly, the movie faced controversy in Germany and was eventually banned there. Hardware, 1990. Richard Stanley wrote and directed this cult movie from 1990, starring Dylan McDermott and Stacey Travis. Hardware is set in a post-apocalyptic world. In this movie, a nuclear war has transformed the world into a radioactive wasteland. The sea has dried up, and the whole Earth has become a post-apocalyptic desert. A scavenger discovers a dismantled robot and decides to sell it to a Marine named Mo. Mo, in turn, tries to negotiate a reasonable price with a local junk dealer named Alvy, but that plan doesn't work at all. So he decides to gift it to his girlfriend, Jill. Later on, it's revealed that the dismantled robot's not just any machine. It is, in fact, a Mark 13, a military robot designed to be a deadly killing machine. Despite having a major design flaw, it can also self-repair. Mark 13 is capable of gruesome and indiscriminate murders, as it was specifically created to control the exploding population. And this military robot is in Jill's house. Now Jill has to figure out ways to protect herself from a menacing robot. From there, the rest of the story follows. Originally, the film received an X rating from the Motion Pictures Association of America. Some scenes were later cut to secure an R rating. In Australia, the film underwent heavy censorship during its theatrical run. In Germany, 30 seconds were removed to secure an FSK 18 rating. The movie also faced various sales and advertising restrictions after the Federal Review Board for Media Harmful to Young Persons placed it on the index. The Brood, 1979. Here we have yet another David Cronenberg movie on the list. And honestly, when it comes to his directorial career, there's certainly no shortage of disturbing body horror movies. In this movie, Frank's mentally disturbed wife Nola is undergoing an experimental therapy called psychoplasmics, developed by a psychotherapist named Dr. Hal Raglan. While her treatment is going on, both Frank and Nola are in the middle of a divorce. During psychoplasmics, patients are encouraged to vent their suppressed emotions, which manifest themselves physically on their bodies. Later, they can get rid of those physical manifestations through talk therapy. However, this experimental form of treatment has disastrous consequences after it's prescribed to Nola. In her case, the physical manifestations formed from the release of her repressed emotions become brood-like creatures who go on to mercilessly kill people without any explanation. David Cronenberg wrote and directed this movie in the aftermath of his bitter divorce. It was influenced and shaped by his own personal experiences. It's a haunting and surreal movie which was bound to raise eyebrows and cause controversies at the time of its release. The Brood was heavily cut by the Ontario Censor Board when it was first released in Canada. Even the US version was heavily edited to obtain an R rating. In fact, the unrated cut of the movie was released for the first time on DVD in the UK in 2005, 26 years after its official release. Even by today's standards, it's extremely disturbing, haunting, and a surreal movie. So it's not surprising that in 1979, 47 years ago, it had to face the full wrath of the censors. Alien, 1979. While returning to Earth from a space mission, a crew of astronauts encounters an extremely deadly, ferocious, dangerous, and scary life form. Every member of that team dies at the hands of that ominous and mysterious creature, except Ripley, who leaves no stone unturned in pulling off a brave struggle for survival against the alien. The film excels in the departments of sound design and visual effects, portraying the fear of the unknown in the most convincing way possible. The alien creature in the movie is scary beyond belief, and you'll immediately know what I'm talking about if you've ever seen the movie. Ridley Scott has used silence, tension, and atmosphere so perfectly here. A horror science fiction movie cannot get any more immersive than this. Alien is a brutal and uncompromising movie through and through. I was blown away when I watched this movie for the first time. It completely shocked me. I couldn't believe that Ridley Scott managed to make it in 1979. At the time of its release, the film was classified X in the UK by the British Board of Film Censors. The distributor had initially sought an AA certificate for audiences aged 14 and above, but ultimately accepted the X rating instead. The Fly, 1986. It's time for us to end this list with yet another David Cronenberg movie. The Fly revolves around a brilliant and eccentric scientist named Seth Brundle. Seth tries to woo an investigative journalist named Veronica Quaife by offering her some valuable information about his research in the field of matter transportation. His experiments have been successful so far against all the expectations of the scientific establishment. His confidence in his project grows after he can teleport inanimate objects. One day, he tries to teleport himself, but unfortunately during the experiment, a fly enters the transmission booth, which alters Seth's life completely. While conducting the experiment, Seth merges with that fly. Gradually, the fly takes over, and Seth literally starts behaving and acting like a fly. In the end, after he completely turns into a hybrid of a fly and a human, he asks Veronica to shoot him. Initially, she hesitates, but after seeing her deformed lover in unbearable pain, she realizes that he's no longer the man she used to love. And in an act of mercy, she shoots him dead. 3 minutes were cut from its theatrical release in India, despite the fact that it got an A certificate by the censor board. Based on the strong reactions of the audiences during preview screenings in Toronto and LA, the monkey cat sequence and the butterfly baby coda were also removed from the movie. All the movies on this list have pushed the boundaries of what is acceptable and what is not acceptable in media. In their own ways, they've enriched and benefited the world of cinema by making it a bit more fearless, bold, experimental, and rebellious. Alright folks, this is where we're going to sign off. I hope you enjoyed the video today. Please like our video, subscribe to the channel, and make sure to ring that notification bell so you don't miss any more of our marvelous videos. Take care, stay soon. We'll be back with our next video before you know it. And until then, stay marvelous.